And the Federal Energy Minister, Josh Frydenberg, joins us now from Sydney. Minister, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
Will there be a deal today?
Well, I'm confident that today we can move forward with the National Energy Guarantee. The states still have some concerns and will still continue to work through them and talk to them very constructively. But last night we had a dinner with the state ministers, and there was an appreciation of the importance of the National Energy Guarantee. There was an understanding that we need to effectively integrate energy and climate policy, and all of us as ministers have heard the voices loud and clear from stakeholders who say it's important to get this done. So there's still a long way to go, Michael, but I'm confident out of today's meeting we will move to the next stage.
What do you see as the key sticking points?
Well, obviously, some of the Labor states do not like the government's emissions reduction target. They want it to be higher.
Is it too low?
Also,
is it too low in your view?
We think it's right. We have an ambitious Paris commitment, and we're asking the electricity sector, which makes up a third of the emissions from across the economy, to do its pro rata share. The states have also raised issues with the timing of the review as to the level of those emission reduction commitments, but this is all within the remit of the federal sphere, so we'll continue to hold our ground there. But importantly, the National Energy Guarantee has universal support from the manufacturers, the farmers, the miners, the small business community, the energy users, the charity organisations, and indeed the renewable energy sector, which last night told ministers that they wanted to move forward, even though they had some concerns with the target. So we need to get power prices down. The Energy Guarantee will do that, and hopefully today we can make progress.
The Labor states and the Labor opposition federally want the power to scale up that emissions target beyond the current 26%, not through legislation as currently stands under the National Energy Guarantee Plan, but through regulation, either through yourself or future energy ministers. What is wrong with the Minister of the Day having the power through regulation based on current circumstances to scale up Australia's emission reduction target?
Well, legislation offers investment certainty, and you can't just flick a switch to move from 26% to 45%, for example, overnight. There are enormous ramifications for the energy companies and the suite of assets that they hold and the costs that they would incur. So by putting the targets in legislation, you give a greater amount of certainty. Now, when Victoria put in place its renewable energy target, it specifically legislated, it didn't put it in regulation. When the federal Labor government, then at the time, in 2009 and 10, legislated the renewable energy target, they also did it that way as opposed to regulation. So we're just being consistent with what federal and state Labor governments have done in the past. We think that creates greater investment certainty, but it doesn't preclude legislation being changed to lift the target in the future.
OK, and the Labor states, as you well know, are a bit wary of signing up to any deal until the legislation goes through the federal coalition party room next Tuesday. Is that a done deal? Because we have, as you know, the likes of the former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, your backbench colleague Craig Kelly saying, hang on, when you say Josh Frydenberg and when the Prime Minister says the party room has agreed to the National Energy Framework in its entirety, you are not telling the truth.
Well, we've had very positive, constructive, extensive discussions in our party room on the National Energy Guarantee. And Michael, I'm very confident that there is strong support for this important policy. And my colleagues have been briefed by the key stakeholders who visited Parliament not that long ago to explain how really important this was to lowering power prices, increasing the reliability of the system. We're not asking the states to sign up to the National Energy Guarantee at this point. We are asking them to have a phone hookup after it's gone through the coalition party room and then release the draft legislation at the state level for a period of consultation. That's what I'm hoping to get agreement to today. That's where discussions were last night, and that will be a step forward. When it comes to the National Energy Guarantee, there has been some ugly football, if you like, but the ball is moving up the field.
And what do you think of Tony Abbott's role in all of this? Just this week, once again, he wasn't ruling out the prospect of crossing the floor to vote against legislation he would be unhappy with.
Well, that would be regrettable, but everybody in the party room is entitled to vote as they so choose in the Liberal Party, and will always defend that right. But I would say to Tony, as I'd say to my other colleagues, as I say to the Labor states, the National Energy Guarantee is in the national interest. We've listened to the independent experts. It's been unanimously, universally backed by industry, business and consumer groups, and it has been supported by modelling showing that the average Australian household will be $550 a year better off as a result of this policy and the other work that we're doing.
Questions are still being raised on another topic about that $444 million grant the government gave to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation. Minister, as you know, Michael Meyer, a founding director of the foundation, says in his words, it is unthinkable and shocking that a grant of such a big amount was handed out without any public tender process. Has he got a point?
Well, the grant is very important in helping to secure the future health of the Barrier Reef. My department's made it very clear that the grant guidelines were complied with. We went through a budget process, and this organisation, in the words of Anthony Albanese, are a reputable foundation. Tony Burke, when he was the Environment Minister, gave money to the foundation. The money through this foundation will be going to our farmers to reduce the pesticide, nitrogen and sediment runoff into the reef. It'll be going to our scientists to ensure the resilience and the health of our coral to deal with light and heat stress, and it will be going to tackling the crown of thorns starfish menace. This is what we need to do to save the Great Barrier Reef. The Turnbull government has made a record $500 million investment in it. It should be celebrated, and it certainly is a contrast to what the Labor Party did when they were in office.
The point Michael Meyer and others are making is, the question he's raising is, how do you know this foundation is the best organisation to do this? You know full well there are many organisations doing fantastic work trying to salvage the reef without a public tender process. How do you know this was the best organisation to get such a large lump of taxpayer money?
Well, no other organisation like the foundation has been so successful in leveraging off the private sector, raising tens of millions of dollars. And this $500 million contribution that we've made, Michael, is on top of the $2 billion Reef 2050 plan that we're in partnership with the Queensland Government. But the reef needs more money, and that extra money can come from the philanthropic community. So the partnership between the government and the foundation is there in a 100-page public document. There are governance requirements, there are priorities set out, there is monitoring and compliance also made very clear. And what we need to do is get more philanthropic contributions to the reef, and the contributions of the foundation can help in that regard.
Josh Frydenberg, thanks for joining us. We await the outcome of this important meeting today.
Good to be with you, Michael.
Let's take you now to the other morning.